Hello to you all. On the next slide, Catherine and I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which Swinburne Australia's campuses are located in Melbourne's east and outer east, and pay our respect to the elders past, present and emerging. For some quick information about Swinburne on the next slide, we are a dual sector university, which means we teach higher education and vocational education. We have 3 campuses in Australia and 1 in Sarawak, Malaysia. The Sarawak campus is not included in this presentation, and we run separate libraries with separate systems. We share some resources with them, but they have their own instance of OpenAthens and approximately 2,000 students. The next slide shows some statistics about our library. In 2023, we had over 2.2 million searches on our discovery platform. In addition, we tracked approximately 2 million sessions of e-journal usage, around 1 million sessions of ebooks usage, and just over 13,000 physical loans. Our library collection is approximately 96% electronic. The highest number of physical checkouts are for our laptops, which are about 70% of all loans. As with all academic libraries, we've been reading the research of the vast majority of users start their search in Google, not on the library discovery platform. It's hard for us to get information from our library system on where a user starts search, so we are very interested in research of other universities. We are particularly struck by some research of our neighbouring university, University of Melbourne, which identified 2 particular pain points for their users around finding a resource and not knowing if it had access, and being able to provide and providing broken links. Looking at these issues for us, we are seeking to address broken links, particularly in our learning management system, Canvas, which with the introduction of a reading list product. We wanted to be able to provide access to our users via the tools that they are using, particularly when they start their searches in Google. Once they find a resource they are interested in, they just want access, no additional effort. It was important for us to be able to offer easy access from where the user is on their particular journey, rather than forcing them back through the library platforms. We are a relatively small academic library. So much of the access we seek to offer is unmediated. We are looking to make our users' pathway as smooth as possible for them, whatever the path is. Prior to OpenAthens, we were on Easy Proxy, which was working well with SSO. We were very interested in RA21 as a replacement for IP-based access, looking at who the user was rather than where, as much of the library resource access occurs away from our campus. Easy Proxy, using Easy Proxy, all our users had to come via the library platform, even if only virtually, to be converted to our IP range, authorized, and then continue on their journey to full text access. We are not confident with comparing Easy Proxy sessions with OpenAthens sessions, as they are measuring different things. But we can say that in 2023, our first year on OpenAthens, ebook usage went up by 7.4%, but e-journal usage went down by 3.5%, which reflects a fairly common trend across other institutions, we believe. This varies from year to year. Catherine?
Thanks, Anton. The next slide will show some use of OpenAthens before we actually fully launched it. We implemented OpenAthens in 2022. We used EBSCO as our implementation partner, and I have to say they were fabulous, and the ongoing support that they provide us in Asia Pacific is excellent. We undertook a stage rollout, and as you can see from this slide, one of the most interesting times for us was the 2 to 3 weeks after we connected to OpenAthens on the 25th of January 2022, but before we told anyone, even the rest of the library, that it was working. So we feverishly watched the daily numbers as about 40 to 50 new users discovered the federated pathway each day. It was January, February for us, which is a very quiet time in our academic cycle, so we were quite excited by these figures. The next slide shows some of the resources that our users started to use via OpenAthens federated access. So the next slide shows 2023, our first full year of Open Athens. Student usage is in red and matches the peaks and troughs of the academic semester. But our university staff, as you can see, work consistently hard all year. We moved our library management system and discovery platform, which is Ex Libris Alma Primo, over to Open Athens at the end of February 2022, our A to Z database list shortly afterwards. And then in June, we undertook a huge search and replace project inside our learning management system, Canvas, to replace Easy Proxy links with Open Athens links. At that time, we did not have a reading list product and our links were not centrally managed. We developed a Swinburne-specific Open Athens link generator, which rewrote Easy Proxy links to Open Athens. With new links, it encoded the URL, it added the redirector prefix, and it made some Swinburne-specific adjustments to match database requirements. We also developed a version which did this in bulk. In January 2023, we redirected all continuing Easy Proxy traffic through an error page, which allowed users to connect to the resource but advised them to update the link. We were conscious that we did not want to make it more difficult for students who had no control over the link that they'd been provided with. This process helped us to uncover some unknown user behaviour, particularly among our researchers. We read the Easy Proxy logs in great detail and contacted some researchers when we could see some unusual behaviour. We uncovered the usage of EndNote Click and Zotero. As a small library, neither product's currently supported by us, and we had to develop solutions for these use cases as well. We measured our success on this project by the fact that our student users did not really notice it taking place. It all happened seamlessly behind the scenes, but as I've shown, they discovered for themselves the new and easier access pathways. There was more change experienced by staff, particularly our educators, as we had to work with them on updated Easy Proxy links in Canvas. We now move to the next slide and Libkey. So we're still to fully implement the Libkey suite of products, but have been very impressed with the way they complement our federated access via Open Athens. There's several aspects to the Libkey suite of products, but I'll just highlight a couple in the next slide. So federated access provides pathways for resources we get directly from the publisher, but we also have other arrangements, and Libkey helps to facilitate easier access to full text from aggregators. So for example, we have over 400,000 ebook central books across a very large variety of publishers. It also facilitates easier access to hybrid open access resources. And so for those who don't know what that is, it's when an article processing charge is paid to a subscription journal for a particular article to be published as open access. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. So just as an example with EBA, we have an ebook central EBA. So just back to the other slide, where our users, we have 20 years of Taylor and Francis ebooks, but we have them on the ebook central platform. And Libkey Nomad, as shown in this image, means that if a user locates a book on the Taylor and Francis platform, then the Libkey Nomad pop-up advises them that they can access this text via Swinburne, and the pop-up is a link to open the book up in ebook central. And for resources that we don't hold, it reroutes our users back to our interlibrary loan process. So Libkey Link, which is in the bottom half of the screen, replaces our link resolver in aggregated databases such as EBSCO and ProQuest. And we hope to add that to Scopus and Web of Science as well. It connects users more directly to full text, which is not included with the database. This is particularly important for the types of articles I mentioned before, open access articles in hybrid journals. Our link resolver, so the find full text icon in there, would produce the information that Swinburne does not subscribe to this journal, and that would then be a dead end for our users. However, if we change where that link goes to use Libkey Link, that's a link that's enriched with unpaywall data on open access citations, and it's able to redirect the user to the open access version of an article offered in a hybrid journal that we don't subscribe to. So hybrid open access is a growing area and a challenge for us to facilitate access to. Libkey also provides us with statistics on how many open access articles are being used via this process. So in our first 4 months of use, we could see that 28% of downloads were actually open access articles. Of course, this does not capture all open access use by our users. So for example, if they did a Google search and found an article directly on a publisher page, they wouldn't come through Libkey at all. But we are still exploring ways to understand the value of our read and publish agreements. So on the next slide, in conclusion, we're just really hopeful that these changes enable our library at Swinburne to meet our users where they are and then help them seamlessly on their journey. Our aim has been to reshape access for library patrons, making it efficient and secure through open access single sign-on, and with the recent integration of Libkey to continue to improve the overall access experience for patrons by streamlining the pathway to subscribed and to open access online resources. Thanks. So last slide, thanks. And I'll now pass you back to John to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. We've had one question, and it's about outreach. It's about, you mentioned that people were accessing the service even before you'd launched it officially. I mean, how much input, how much work did you do to communicate the change to the community?
Do you mean?
That was go on, Catherine.
No, sorry. Do you mean to communicate to users or to
staff? Well, actually, both. I mean, yeah, it's just to get that level of work that you needed to do to bring people on that journey with you.
Anton?
Yeah, it was one of our challenges with going into it. We knew that we didn't have the resourcing that we needed. Our big challenge was, as Catherine mentioned, that we didn't have a centralized reading service where we could do it in change URLs links from easy proxy links over to OpenAthens links in a centralized manner. We had to go out to many places and tell people to replace it themselves. And we didn't have the resources to do that. We couldn't go talk to every educator and have months and months and months. So we had to get as clever about it as we possibly could. Our link generator was very, very important, meaning that if someone was using and still is using an easy proxy link, it would take them to a page and say this link is out of date. It would populate it with the easy proxy link and provide them with an OpenAthens link and give them a button to test. And so they are self-serving, they are getting their own links, and we encourage them on that page to say, please replace this link, or notify, if it's a student, to notify your educator that the link is out of date. So it's more of a self-service approach. We certainly did speak to our learning and teaching department and say we're going to make these changes. We spoke to all our library liaison and said these changes, expect a lot of inquiries and to help people work with that. But it was really about the link generator was probably our savior. Just sending people to a link generator means they could serve themselves.
That's great. Thank you, Anton. That was the only time we have for questions, but thank you so much for sharing that insight. And I can see that you've shared your details, and I guess you'd be happy to accept any further questions from the community. So thank you so much for sharing that.